as Bitcoin Twitter spends its time becoming experts in superconductor technology, the UK government is taking steps to erode individual privacy and implement greater censorship, all under the guise of protection. Welcome back, everyone. Well, while we are all becoming superconductor experts on Bitcoin Twitter and pretending like we've been waiting for this all along, the UK government has been waiting for something all along too, to just reach a little bit more into the cookie jar and take a little bit more of your cookies. Anyways, here we go. Let's dive into it. The UK government is dangerously close to eroding encryption and normalizing mass surveillance. Oh, the sounds of surprise. Nope, no sounds of surprise. Okay. The Online Safety Bill gives the British government the ability to force backdoors into messaging services. No amendments have been accepted that would mitigate the bill's most dangerous elements. And this is an article that was dropped on No BS Bitcoin. Definitely check it out, guys. They live off of donations. If the bill passes, the Online Safety Bill would be a huge step backwards for global privacy and democracy itself. Requiring government-approved software in people's messaging service is an awful precedent. If the Online Safety Bill becomes British law, the damage it causes won't stop at the borders of the UK. The bill would require content filtering as well as age checks to access erotic content. It also requires detailed reports about online activity to be sent to the government. So I just want to point out right now, there's already age checks for access to erotic content. So it's not like they haven't implemented that type of stuff already. Now, the piece about this that is a little bit more transparent and would seem new, but I would bet that I would bet that information has already been sent to the government. But yeah, I was going to say these detailed reports about online activity being sent to the government. Because everybody in the government is just an angel doing everything perfectly. Perfect overlords, right? Perfect judges. Anyways, the UK government wants to grant itself the right. We're going to grant ourselves the right to scan every message online for content related to, here we go, the child abuse and terrorism. And we're going to get into that in a bit because it's a very slippery slope. And says it will still somehow magically protect people's privacy. So how exactly do you protect people's privacy? By going through all of their information. The government is made up of human beings, individuals who would be going through your information. Granted, they could make a case saying, oh, well, it's an AI that would go through it. Okay, so who verifies the report that the AI generates at the end? At some point, there's going to be a human being, and that human being may or may not use specific information that they've gotten to possibly sell that information, possibly do other terrible things with that information. Anyways, that's just the tip of the iceberg. So let's continue along here. It's simply impossible to protect people's privacy. UK civil society groups have condemned the bill, as have technical experts and human rights groups around the world. The companies that provide encrypted messaging, such as WhatsApp, Signal, and the UK-based Element, have also explained the bill's dangers. In response to this outpouring of resistance, the UK government's response has been to wave its hand and deny reality. In a response letter to the House of Lords, seen by EFF, the UK's Minister of Culture, Media and Sports simply rehashes an imaginary world in which messages can be scanned while user privacy is maintained. Yeah, that doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. We expect the industry to use its extensive expertise and resources to innovate and build robust solutions for individual platform services that ensure both privacy and child safety by preventing child abuse content from being freely shared on public and private channels, the minister wrote. UK lawmakers still have a chance to stop their nation from taking this shameful leap forward towards mass surveillance. End-to-end encryption was not fully considered and voted on during either committee or report stage in the House of Lords. The Lords can still add a simple amendment that would protect private messaging and specify that end-to-end encryption won't be weakened or removed. So this online safety bill, all right, I personally had not heard of it before, or maybe I did and I just don't remember. That's possible too. Whatever. Anyways, let's dive into this, right? Because before we actually get into the summary and the commentary about this, we have to understand the framing of information. Framing of a story is very important, right? People tell you a story in a certain way so that you will think of it in a certain way. It's just the way it works. You know, like that's what makes good storytelling good storytelling. You know, you get people to invest in the story. Okay, so here's an interesting article. The UK government publishes the Online Safety Bill, and this is an overview. The Online Safety Bill aims to make the internet a safer place for all users. But supposedly their power just stops at the borders of the UK. Well, apparently not. By prohibiting providers of users to user services from hosting illegal or harmful content. Sounds great, right? They're protecting us. It sounds great. Wonderful. Currently, there are a number of pieces of legislation which users may be able to rely on to obtain justice. So there's already legislation that people can rely on to obtain justice. But these typically require, and this is the part right here, guys. It requires victims of abuse to bring action against the individual posting the online abuse. Whilst this legislation remains in force, the bill provides additional measures to be brought against the providers of the service, which is being utilized to carry out the online abuse. The draft bill anticipates the legislation will be extraterritorial. That's right. However, some services will be exempt, including, and this is great, it's rules for thee and not for me. These services that will be exempt include news sites, some retail services. I'm sure it's whichever ones the specific government office chooses. I'm sure that it won't be friends. I'm sure that it won't be good acquaintances or people who paid. No. This is going to be fair. This is going to be just because they're looking out for all of us, guys. Some services used internally by businesses and email services. So essentially, it's rules for thee and not for me. Okay, we're going to have specific institutions that can just simply do no wrong. Kind of a reminder of the Ministry of Truth, which was propped up and then dismantled because it's completely insane and dystopian. So here we go. The content that these platforms will be required to remove includes child sexual abuse, controlling or coercive behavior, cyberbullying, extreme sexual violence against animals or people, fraud, hate crime and speech, inciting violence, illegal immigration and people smuggling, promoting or facilitating suicide, promoting self-harm, revenge porn, selling illegal drugs or weapons, sexual exploitation, and terrorism. Protecting vulnerable users. One of the key benefits of the bill is its ability to protect vulnerable users from online harm, including children who may be at particular risk of cyberbullying and other forms of online abuse. Some content, while not illegal, may be harmful or age inappropriate for children. Harmful content that platforms will need to protect children from accessing includes pornographic content, online abuse, cyberbullying, and online harassment, as well as content that does not meet a criminal level, but which promotes or glorifies topics such as suicide, self-harm, or eating disorders. The bill primarily protects children by imposing a duty on user-to-user service providers to remove harmful content or ensuring that it does not appear in the first place, enforce age limits and age-checking measures, ensure that risks and dangers to children's safety are more transparent, including publishing risk assessments, and assist parents by making it easier for them to monitor their children's online activities and providing them with clear and accessible ways to report problems when they do arise. Social media platforms will need to demonstrate that their age verification process are robust enough to assess whether users are at the appropriate age for the content. Vulnerable adults are also protected under the bill, including individuals who may lack the capacity to make decisions about their own online safety. We are protecting you from yourself, such as those with dementia or learning disabilities. These individuals may need additional support and protection to ensure that they are able to use the internet safely and independently. All right, so the overarching message, this bill, this is to protect everybody. You just need to trust us that we're going to preserve your privacy. You just have to trust the government, right? That's all you got to do. Just trust. There are questions about how the bill would be enforced and whether it would be effective in achieving its goals given the vastness of the internet. Ofcom, ooh, that's an interesting one, is being put in charge as regulator. Oh, look at that. Boom. All of a sudden, some agency just becomes online police. As regulator, Ofcom is to be granted enforcement powers, including powers to impose substantial fines for breach of up to £18 million or 10% of annual global turnover, whichever is greater. Wow. So just like that, this particular organization is now just police, and they can start to charge you, and the state will enforce it. How nice. Okay, I had never heard of Ofcom, or however the hell you want to pronounce it. So yeah, we're going to dive into it. So what does Ofcom do? They make sure people get the best from their broadband, home phone, and mobile services, as well as keeping an eye on TV and radio. They also oversee the Universal Postal Service, which means Royal Mail must deliver and collect letters 6 days a week and parcels 5 days a week at an affordable and uniform price throughout the UK. These guys are doing the tough work, so you don't have to. We look after the airwaves used by wireless devices like cordless phones, walkie-talkies, and even some car keys and doorbells. We also help make sure people don't get scammed and are protected from bad practices. This is particularly important for vulnerable or older people. So seems like we already have all these measures in place for all of these vulnerable people. We provide advice and information to thousands of people each year through our website and call center. We register complaints from people and businesses, which helps us take action against firms when they let their customers down. Parliament has not given us powers to resolve people's complaints. Oh, not yet, but they just did over there in the last article. They're going to be giving you that power. To resolve people's complaints about their broadband, home phone, or mobile phone. Instead, these can be considered by alternative dispute resolution services. We also help to make sure people across the UK are satisfied with what they see and hear on TV and radio. That programs reflect the audiences they serve. We consider every complaint we receive from viewers and listeners. Often we investigate further, and we sometimes find broadcasters in breach of our rules. We are independent and funded by fees paid to us by companies we regulate. And soon you're going to be funded by the individuals that you attack. Okay, so let's dive into this, right? Because this is very difficult. So obviously, right? Like, cyberbullying is bad. Child abuse, child pornography, encouraging people to commit suicide, stuff like that. Like all of these things, these are just absolutely terrible things. And, the people that are trying to create these type of laws to essentially scan all of our data, sadly, what they do is they use narratives like this because, you see, it's very tricky, right? In a public forum, if you come out in opposition, it's not in opposition to those terrible acts, because we are all we are all very well aware of how terrible those things are. But what comes along with it is the loss of your privacy, everyone's privacy, all for the cost of trying to keep everyone safe, right? So what happens is that this becomes a massive cost to society. Everyone becomes a prisoner because a very, very small subsect of people, okay, frankly, are just, for lack of a better term, sick. I mean, let's be honest, that's extremely sick stuff. And there's a lot of people out there who are mentally unhealthy. And the reality is that rather than resolving or trying to attempt to get to the root cause of why we have this type of behavior, it's much easier to just create a giant system that you can monitor and then decide who is doing terrible things and who isn't. And of course, you have to trust the government that they're not going to overstep their boundary. They're going to stop at the child abuse and the cyberbullying. Okay? And then of course, right, all of those things, they have a broad definition. Every single one of these things has a broad definition that constantly slightly changes. Now, certain topics, of course, are just plain and simple, they're black and white, okay? But when it comes to stuff like preserving your online privacy, or what is considered cyberbullying, or what is considered to be encouraging people to do self-harm, for example, what if you're having a conversation with your parents about owning Bitcoin, right? Bitcoin is something that is not issued by the government. Well, technically, Off-Cam can decide that, hey, this is maybe, inciting some type of self-harm, right? Gambling. I mean, look, it doesn't matter, because they make the rules and then they impose them and then they decide. So it is a very slippery slope, and sadly, okay, governments are going to use those trigger situations, those type of situations, right, which pull on our heartstrings, because of course, you know what I mean, like child abuse and stuff like that, and slavery and all of these things, like this is all awful stuff. So of course you want to stop that. You want to do anything it takes to stop that. And of course, one of the easiest things to do is give up a little bit of your freedom. Give up a little bit of your privacy. You can trust the government. Never forget, all governments are made up of human beings. All of us human beings. None of us are better than our incentives, okay? When we go into the government, we don't become some magical unicorn creature that all of a sudden bestows justice and fairness upon the land. That's not how this works. We're individual humans, and we are flawed. That's all there is to it. So we really, really have to be careful. I'm not going to pretend to, give some, blanket solution that can fix these things. No, these are difficult topics, okay? They need to be handled not with a paintbrush, right? A giant brush that just broadly covers everything up. No, okay? We most likely need to take a look at some really difficult issues, right? Like what is happening with the mental health deterioration of pretty much the entire Western world. So, it's much easier to just sit there, lock everybody up, and throw away the key. But if we actually want to resolve these issues, we are going to have to do the difficult work. And the difficult work is what is needed in order to fix these issues. They're not going to go away by implanting dystopian government that checks and monitors everything we do and then decides on the fly whether we are criminals or not. It's a very scary future if we allow this to happen. Anyways, guys, that is the clip for today. Don't forget, like and subscribe, and I will catch you all tomorrow.